France, 1795. The revolution had destroyed the monarchy, executed a king, and drowned the nation in blood. The streets of Paris no longer echoed with royal ceremonies but with uncertainty. The reign of terror had ended, Robespierre was dead, and yet peace did not follow. France was exhausted. Years of revolution had shattered institutions that once governed the nation. Inflation crippled the economy. Food shortages continued. Political factions fought endlessly for control. The government that replaced revolutionary chaos, the Directory, was weak, corrupt, and deeply unpopular. The ideals of liberty and equality remained, but stability seemed impossible. Across Europe, monarchies watched France with fear. Austria, Prussia, Britain, and other powers formed coalitions, determined to crush the revolution before its ideas spread further. War surrounded France on nearly every border. The Republic needed victories. It needed a hero. Few noticed the young artillery officer from Corsica who quietly rose through military ranks during these turbulent years. Napoleon Bonaparte was not born into French aristocracy. He spoke French with a heavy accent, and came from a modest noble family far from Parisian influence. But he possessed something rare: relentless ambition, and an extraordinary understanding of warfare. In 1795, Royalist forces attempted to overthrow the revolutionary government in Paris. Panic spread through the city as thousands marched against the convention. The government turned to Napoleon for defense. His response was swift and brutal. He ordered cannons loaded with grapeshot and fired directly into advancing crowds. The rebellion collapsed within hours. The government survived. Napoleon became known as the man who saved the revolution. Promotion followed quickly. At just 26 years old, Napoleon was given command of the Army of Italy, a neglected force poorly supplied and largely ignored by political leaders. Many assumed the assignment was insignificant. Napoleon saw opportunity. When he arrived, his soldiers were hungry, unpaid, and demoralized. Standing before them, he promised glory, victory, and wealth. "You are naked and ill-fed," he told them. "I will lead you into the most fertile plains in the world." Then he moved. Instead of fighting cautiously, Napoleon divided enemy armies and struck rapidly before they could unite. Speed became his greatest weapon. He marched where opponents least expected, forcing surrender after surrender. Within months, Austrian forces were driven back across northern Italy. Victories at Lodi, Arcole, and Rivoli transformed Napoleon into a legend. Newspapers in France glorified him. Paintings portrayed him as heroic and unstoppable. Soldiers adored him because he shared hardship and rewarded success. For the first time since the revolution began, France had something it desperately needed: hope. Napoleon negotiated treaties himself, often ignoring instructions from Paris. He governed conquered territories, reorganized administrations, and collected tribute that strengthened France's economy. He was no longer merely a general. He was becoming a political force. Yet ambition rarely rests. In 1798, Napoleon proposed an expedition to Egypt. It aimed to weaken British trade routes to India. Unofficially, it offered distance from political rivals in France while expanding his personal glory. His army captured Alexandria and defeated Mamluk forces at the Battle of the Pyramids. Standing before ancient monuments, Napoleon told his soldiers that 40 centuries looked down upon them. But success proved temporary. The British Navy, led by Admiral Horatio Nelson, destroyed the French fleet. This trapped Napoleon's army in Egypt. Cut off from France, the campaign slowly deteriorated. Yet Napoleon understood something crucial. Power in France was slipping again into instability. In 1799, learning that the Directory faced collapse, he abandoned his army and secretly returned to France. The political situation he found was fragile. Economic crisis persisted. Military threats continued. Public confidence in government had vanished. Many believed the revolution had gone too far. France wanted order. Napoleon offered it. Working with political allies, He orchestrated a coup d'etat. Legislators were pressured. Assemblies dissolved under military presence. Resistance faltered. The Directory fell. In its place rose the consulate. Napoleon became first consul, the dominant authority in France. Though republican institutions technically remained, real power now rested in one man's hands. Napoleon moved carefully. He reformed taxation, stabilized currency, centralized administration. He reconciled relations with the Catholic Church through the Concordat of 1801. Roads improved. Education systems expanded. Legal reforms began shaping the Napoleonic Code. France, after years of chaos, finally experienced stability. Victory followed stability. Napoleon defeated Austrian forces again, at the Battle of Marengo in 1800. Each victory strengthened his popularity. Each reform increased loyalty. Gradually, power concentrated further. In 1802, Napoleon was declared consul for life. The Republic still existed in name, but its transformation was nearly complete. By 1804, momentum became inevitable. France prepared for another astonishing change. On December 2, 1804, inside Notre Dame in Paris, dignitaries gathered for a ceremony. Napoleon would be crowned Emperor of the French. Pope Pius VII travelled from Rome to officiate. Tradition dictated that the Pope would place the crown upon the ruler's head. But Napoleon had no intention of appearing subordinate. As the moment arrived, he took the crown himself. Before the watching world, Napoleon placed it upon his own head. Then crowned his wife, Josephine. The message was unmistakable. Authority no longer came from divine right or ancient lineage. It came from power, achievement, and the will of one man. The revolution that began by overthrowing monarchy had produced a new emperor. Europe watched in shock. The age of kings had not ended. It had evolved. Napoleon Bonaparte, once an obscure artillery officer, now ruled France and would soon challenge every major power on the continent. The chaos of revolution had forged something entirely new. Not a republic, not a monarchy, but an empire born from revolution itself. And Europe would never be the same again.